Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. It's Wellness Wednesday, and today we're continuing our talk on perinatal mental health topics throughout the month of March. And this week's discussion is postpartum psychosis. So this is a really important topic to talk about, and it's not one that's often talked about when we think about what can happen after having a baby. So we're going to talk about what it is, how it happens, who might be at an increased risk, the stigmas surrounding postpartum psychosis, as well as prevention and education. So let's start with defining it. So postpartum psychosis is a sudden, intense, and temporary psychotic episode that happens for women as a result of having a baby. This happens in about 1 to 2 out of 1,000 births, so 1 to 2% of births. And some of the symptoms of postpartum psychosis include delusions, so maybe a strange way of thinking about something and they become really fixated on this. Also auditory and visual hallucinations, so things that they might be hearing that feel really disturbing to them, things that they might be seeing that are disturbing, especially associated with the baby, possibly hallucinating that they might be having harmed the baby, or that the worry that a harm will come to the baby. And these delusions and hallucinations are very vivid for the mother, and they feel very real and very scary. They also might feel very irritable during this time, maybe not wanting to be alone for fear of these delusions or hallucinations becoming even more real than what they are. So when there's a psychotic psychotic episode, the person has lost touch with reality in a sense, and so these do feel very real for that person. There's also more paranoia attached to this, and that these women might be more likely to maybe not disclose these hallucinations or delusions or the way in which they're thinking to other people, especially when they're experiencing symptoms of paranoia. So women that are at increased risk for developing postpartum psychosis are women that have themselves been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or have a family history of bipolar disorder. Also women who have previously experienced a psychotic episode. They are more likely to develop postpartum psychosis after having a baby. So something important to note is that no one wants to experience postpartum psychosis. The women that I've spoken with who have experienced this describe it as being the most terrifying time in their life, and that this can happen to anyone. That this isn't something that happens to people who are not nice or who are not good mothers. This isn't happening to those other people. This could happen to anyone. And that when I have conversations with mothers who have experienced postpartum psychosis, that they often ask themselves this question, as well as me, as this sense of, how could I not have known about this? That this happens to women who are successful, educated, that even women who may have been educated about this, that we need to do much more work around reducing and ending this stigma attached to perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, particularly postpartum psychosis, that so often this illness is characterized and is really only highlighted when we see something in the news, when a woman may commit suicide as a result of this, which happens in about 5% of cases, or the women who may commit infanticide, so killing their babies. That all of this, that aspect of the illness is very rare. That about 90% of women do not harm themselves, do not harm their babies, and go on to recover and heal from this illness, that this is something that's temporary. And that oftentimes we're not talking about and holding space for those women. And they're also not feeling safe enough to be able to share their stories. And the power of those stories and being able to reach other women who've experienced this as well and have suffered in silence. Much more education and prevention needs to be done around screening women during their pregnancy period. And for those that are at a higher risk, being able to put preventative measures in place to prevent this occurrence from happening, as well as this standardized sense of being able to educate that woman's partner, her family members, the community around what signs, what happens when a woman is experiencing postpartum psychosis. And that having the frontline workers educated about this as well. So, police, fire, the people who are the first responders on a scene where this woman might be in need of help, and being able to get her the adequate care that she needs, and being able to care for her in the way that she needs to be cared for in order to heal from what is a horrible and tragic and very sudden and temporary illness that occurs. So I would encourage you to have discussions around this, to share this video, to be able to talk with other people about what happens. That the more that we spread the word, the more that we're in the know, the more that we can feel prepared to be able to support the people that we care about, and with the hopes of preventing and intervening when this does happen. And we will end our perinatal mental health series next week with talking about postpartum PTSD that can result from having a traumatic birth experience. So we're going to end that series with that. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out individually if you don't feel comfortable commenting in the thread. I will also, of course, attach some resources there in the comments below, and I'll look forward to talking with you all again next Wellness Wednesday. Take care.